Hi there, good afternoon and welcome. We're so glad to be speaking with you today on the topic of IL instruction for health science students. I'll introduce myself. My name is Tamar Rubin. I'm a librarian and manager of learning design at Credo. And I oversee content development for all of our information literacy materials, including our health science materials. And I'm here with two of my colleagues, Devin and Etta. Do you want to introduce yourselves, Devin?
Hey everyone, this is Devin Lee. I work with Tamar and I helped with the research and content development for the health science product.
Hi everyone, it's Etta Verma. I'm a librarian as well, and I'm Credo's Customer Success Manager. That means that I work with you on getting the health science materials or other materials into your work.
Great, and we are so excited to be talking to you today on the topic of IL instruction in health science. Just going to go through what we're going to cover today, and then we'll dive in to the meat of our presentation. So we're going to talk today about the importance of information literacy to both academic and professional success, both in general and specifically with regard to health science careers. We're going to take a look at how to address these important skills, even within a crowded and structured health science curriculum, and the strategies that can be used to do so successfully, such as the flipped classroom, short teaching sessions, and modular instructional materials. And we're going to look specifically at how our InfoLit Health Sciences product can help meet those challenges. And just a quick note, as we're presenting throughout the webinar, if questions come to you, feel free to pop them in the questions box in the webinar, and we will try and address them all at the end of our presentation. All right, so let's get started. So first, let's take a look at why does this matter? Why is IL important in health science careers? Well, as many of you probably already know, health science careers require practitioners to engage with information from many different sources, evaluate it quickly and thoughtfully, and then use that information to make consequential decisions multiple times a day. And doing so effectively requires many IL skills, familiarity with trustworthy sources, strong searching skills, and the ability to evaluate and synthesize and apply evidence within the context of each patient's needs. So really, what that means is that IL is not an abstract skill when it comes to health sciences. It's not something that students are going to encounter in a class or, a one-shot experience and then never actually apply. In fact, it's a career where IL is extremely necessary and consequential. And as a result, should really be treated as a foundational skill along with clinical topics the health science students are using, not just an add-on or an abstraction.
Yeah, so speaking about building information literacy skills, ideally the student should have ongoing opportunities during their time in school to be exposed to the information literacy and critical thinking skills that they will need as practitioners. So throughout their education, students really should have access to materials that are relevant, authentic, and rigorous to match the scope and the pace of their program.
Thanks, Devin. So as you know, both pedagogical and logistical challenges can impede quality IL instruction. These challenges are often intertwined. So let's take a look at some of the challenges to providing IL instruction to health science students. Of course, many of these challenges apply universally to teaching information literacy. If you've experienced other challenges to IL instruction at your institution and have questions about how they can be addressed, as Tamar said, feel free to throw those questions into the chat area and we can try to discuss them during the Q&A time at the end. As with any skill, IL is made up of knowledge and dispositions, and you know about those from the from the ACRL framework. Knowledge and dispositions that develop over time. To internalize IL practices, students require hands-on experience applying their skills to realistic clinical situations with continuous instruction over time. But in reality, a 2- or 4-year program may not provide sufficient opportunities for students to fully develop the IL skills they'll need in the workplace. Students may come into your school with different information literacy backgrounds depending on where they came from and how long maybe they've been out of school. And they need different levels of instruction or remediation. While faculty may feel time constrained by the subject matter content they need to teach and may not prioritize IL instruction, making it difficult for librarians to integrate their expertise into existing courses. I'm sure that's something we've all come up against. Or instruction may be front-loaded into orientation or one-shot sessions for first years, excuse me, but not revisited in later years when IL instruction may be even more important. For example, in a case study of medical programs, researchers found that most IL instruction happened in the first year, but that the third year of the curriculum was most frequently mentioned as the time when greater contact or integration was needed. Nursing and other health science curriculums, as you know, are tightly structured, and it's hard to go outside that path or to squeeze anything extra in. So we'll discuss flipped learning, which is one solution to that shortly. Tamar?
Sorry, forgot my mute button. So as Etta was saying, you know, there are lots of different challenges that you may encounter in terms of finding the time for IL instruction within health science. And so how can librarians best address these challenges? How to deliver high quality, relevant instruction within these time constraints, and how to do so while also building relationships with faculty to engage them to do the same. So we'll start by taking a look at some of the pedagogical challenges. So to start, of course, the quality and relevance of the material is paramount, right? We always want to make sure that the instruction we're delivering is high quality. This means exposure not only to broad IL skills, but also considering how to provide relevant examples to students of how these skills will apply in their academic and professional careers. So giving a discipline-specific perspective, in this case to health science students, in order to really bring home the relevance of these skills to them. Now, instructional materials should address foundational skills when students are early on in their careers. And so some of those foundational skills include search techniques, scientific method, familiarity with peer review. But in order to really achieve this ideal of continuous instruction, we want to also move beyond some of those basic foundational building blocks and provide opportunities for more advanced IL instruction, which includes some of that really like building connections to clinical practice when possible. And so having a wide range of materials really is key to doing this, having foundational materials as well as more advanced materials. And this not only helps facilitate continuous instruction, it also addresses the challenge of students being at different places in their level of IL skills when entering a course of study, and Etta alluded to that earlier. This is an issue we hear from many of our customers, especially in nursing programs, where students might be in an American educational institution for the first time, or they might be returning to school after a break.
Thanks, Tamar. So I'm going to give some more details about the product. So our product provides relevant content areas with connections to clinical practice that are applicable across the student's academic career. And as Tamar mentioned, these include foundational topics such as search techniques, scientific method, health literacy, and peer review. So our tutorials and videos are full of academic and clinical examples that are appropriate for beginners as well as students preparing to enter the workforce. And to ensure accuracy and relevance, all of our materials were developed in consultation with subject matter experts who are health science librarians. So let's take a look at a clinical topic that requires continuous instruction. To support students' academic and professional success, the health science products cover the foundational concept of evidence-based practice, or EBP. And EBP is central to health science research as well as decision-making. It includes skills like navigating the hierarchy of evidence, building clinical knowledge, and applying appropriate evidence to a patient's case. So using the EBP module, instructors can progressively teach this foundational concept using problem-based learning to help students build their ability to consult medical literature and integrate their patients' preferences when solving problems in clinical settings. And these information literacy skills are directly connected to the stages of clinical decision making, known as the cycle of the 5 A's. And these stages are covered across the EBP module, as well as the larger health science product, to really guide students through the process, all the way from developing an initial PICO question up to acting on their research findings. And similarly, the materials in the health science resources module are appropriate for meeting students' needs throughout their academic program. So at the foundational level, students are introduced to different health science disciplines and the appropriate source types associated with each. So here we're looking at the general characteristics and uses of consumer and scholarly sources. And as students progress through their program, faculty can start bringing in the more advanced materials related to specific resources like point of care. And here we're looking at the introduction to the commonly used point of care resource Dynamed, which you may be familiar with. Practitioners use it when they're locating scholarly sources on the job. And so using this combination of introductory and advanced materials, faculty can build in continuous practice opportunities to help students develop the evidence-based practice skills that they'll need to complete class assignments and in the future when they apply their skills as practitioners. And not only can faculty use the health science content to support continuous instruction, the content itself is customizable. You may be familiar with this, but it allows faculty to tailor the existing text as well as the checkpoints to align with class terminology, the students' needs, as well as program learning outcomes.
Thanks, Devin. And I should just also mention, as we're going through some of these slides with some solutions on them, that the graphics you see include, our graphics and screenshots from the information literacy health science product, just to give you a little sneak peek if you aren't a current user. So we discussed some of the sort of pedagogical challenges and solutions, and now I want to speak about some of the logistical solutions that can help facilitate, greater time for IL instruction and greater engagement on these subjects. Because while we know, of course, excellent, high quality, varied, relevant instructional materials are important, they themselves are not going to solve the issue of time constraints and other logistical challenge in delivering this instruction. We have to build it in a way and deliver it in a way that will maximize engagement. And of course, I think we all have it on our minds that in these current times, when face-to-face instruction at many institutions is reduced or perhaps paused altogether, students and instructors really need to be able to access whatever content they're using in a distance learning or flexible format. And flexibility of delivery is so important for so many reasons, including, proximity and whether or not people are all can be together, but also delivering materials in a modular fashion where instructors or students can choose what content is relevant to particular class goals or student levels. It not only helps facilitate continuous instruction, but it also increases the likelihood that faculty will feel comfortable inserting it into their curriculum without feeling overwhelmed by the time commitment. So, if a single tutorial or a single group of tutorials is relevant to their class, they can kind of pick and choose to use that without feeling like they need to provide their students with an entire course all at once. Now, I know there, we've used this term flipped classroom or flipped learning a couple of times. Some of you may be familiar with that, others may not be, so let me just quickly kind of define that. So the flipped classroom model is really integral to solving many logistical challenges in finding time to teach IL, and also just in general. It's an instructional strategy that's become more and more popular over the years. So when you're doing a flipped classroom model, material can be provided to students to learn on their own time. So, what you might consider like the lecture material or the reading, and the sort of frontal teaching that a lot of people associate with like sort of traditional instruction. And so a lot of that material maybe is provided in the form of a tutorial or a video or some other thing that students can access on their own time. And then this frees up instructor time to answer more advanced or individual questions, you know, when class is actually going on synchronously, either in person or remotely. And so that instructor time is available to answer questions that students bring to class, or practice time, or more advanced discussion and advanced foundation of knowledge and skills. And as I said, this is really distance learning friendly, but it can help in all different kinds of situations. And so both this pick and choose and flipped classroom strategies are often best utilized when the content can be embedded at the point of need. So for example, if a particular piece of instructional media is placed on a specific course page, rather than only being accessible during a single lesson or one-shot instruction. So let's take a closer look at how we integrate some of these strategies into our product, InfoLit Health Science. So the product is designed so that individual learning objects are pick and choose, and I mentioned those benefits earlier. So depending on your instructional goals or the instructional goals of a faculty member you're working with, you can select whatever individual tutorial or group of tutorials works best for you. So for example, if you're teaching an introductory course, you might include tutorials from different sections of our materials to familiarize students with the different types of evidence and where to find them. And then as students progress from simply locating information to, you know, the more advanced evaluating evidence, faculty could draw on some of our more advanced tutorials, such as bias in research. It's just one example that I wanted to show here, or applying evidence to a patient population. And that's in our evidence-based practice section, but could be pulled out individually. And these are just a couple examples of, you know, ways that students can then critically evaluate the way health science information is produced and used in clinical settings. Sorry. And, you know, as you can see through some of these images, each tutorial contains a kind of combination of text content, graphics, videos, and checkpoints on a given topic. So even within the pick and choose model, even within an individual tutorial, students are getting this rich learning experience within each item. So in addition to grouping content by research stage, assignment, or class, instructors can make these materials available at the point of need. So for example, the identifying types of evidence and PubMed tutorials could be embedded into the LMS page describing a research assignment that requires students to use PubMed to locate certain types of evidence.
Thanks, Tamar. So just to be clear, I wanted to emphasize that you can embed our material in different ways in your work. Tamar's been mentioning that you can add it to an LMS. So we offer LTI integration. You can also add our material to LibGuides, or we just have regular permalinks that you might want to use on, say, your library's website or your school's website, if that's something you're allowed to do. A tutorial can be embedded into a course LMS, for example, as pre-reading. And in that flipped classroom approach, students will be able to familiarize themselves with the basics of a concept or a resource in order to prepare themselves for in-class application. And I think you're seeing the PICO graphic there that belongs to our product and that walks students through the steps of writing their own PICO question. One of the assessments that we have asks students to do just that, to write a question that they could use in the workplace. Our tutorials can also support distance learning by providing reading and activities students can complete on their own, thereby freeing up time to answer student questions during a synchronous or hands-on session, if we ever get back to hands-on sessions. The graphic that you see on the screen now is one of our checkpoint questions that allows students to assess their progress. This is the one that I just referred to. It asks them to write a one-sentence PICO question that addresses all the PICO elements in logical order. And we've been talking about flipped learning. So you could give students the PICO material to look at home, in their own time. And then when you're in class, whether that's an online class on, on your LMS or in a in-person class. When you get back to those, you could use the assessment with them and just talk through it in class. You know, bring this up on the screen and have them write the question together so that they can figure out where they might struggle and where they need your help. Our tutorials and assessments are also editable. You can change the material that's provided by us, and you can also add your own material, whether it's extra or different links, text, images, videos, or assessments. Sometimes people have their own videos that they've already made about their library, for example, and they could add that video in there. So that students would have kind of a seamless overview of your library and their research needs in one place. And the existing and the new material can be moved around within the course so that you can tailor it to your students' educational path. So you don't have to stick with the order that we present the material in. You can reorder it so it's best for your needs and your students' needs. Students can view only material that's relevant to them and that can be tweaked over time to reflect curricular changes. So now I think we have time for Q&A. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A area if you haven't already. Thank you.
And while we're pulling up the questions, I just want to hold up one last slide. This is just sources for further reading, some things that we found of interest while we were thinking through and researching some of these issues ourselves, and that we used as we were developing this webinar. And just going to leave this up during Q&A. So if you want to write down any of these sources and look them up yourself just for your further edification, feel free. And now we can dive into the questions. So I have a question here asking to see more of the product. Etta, can you possibly pull up a demo version of our product to show folks some more
Yeah, sure.
under the hood? Thank you.
Yes. Okay, let me show my screen. Are you seeing it now, Tor?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Okay, great. So this, and I should say to whoever asked the question, please continue to ask questions in the Q&A as I go here in case something is unclear. This is the table of contents of the health science product. So there are these several sections here, and I'll just go over them briefly. I won't read through everything, obviously. But here we have this section on evidence-based practice. And this is, it explains to students what evidence-based practice is and discusses how they can use it in their classwork and later in their real work during their careers. I'll just open one at random. You can see that these drop downs show how there's a lot of material within each section for students to use. And those items are a combination, like we were saying before, they're a combination of text, videos, and images, just whatever way we, our curriculum developers and the librarians we consulted with, whichever kind of material they felt was best for bringing across the idea to students. So here is the next one, research needs and strategies. And this one starts to introduce students to medical databases. You know, from their undergraduate work, they might be familiar with some databases already that are more general education related. But, as you know, medical databases like CINAHL and PubMed require a different set of skills. So we start to introduce them to medical databases here. Here's the area on PICO questions. And then here in health science resources, we get more into the nitty-gritty of how to use particular medical databases. So there's information here on PubMed. I see CINAHL there at the beginning. And there's a bunch of other information in there. I won't go through it all, but you can see we have, we covered drugs and, various things, nutrition, that kind of thing as well. If you wanted to take a trial of this, by the way, please just be in contact with us at support@credoreference.com, and you could, get more hands-on look at this yourself. So here in understanding and using research sources, the part I wanted to highlight in here is that we have some new material that we just added, I think in June, on the new version of APA style that came out late last year, I think. And we also have information on how to do AMA citations. As you know, students struggle with how to figure out those citations that they have to do. So we have text and video on those. And lastly, there's a glossary of the terms that are used within this product. And this and the other material was all created in conjunction with those health science librarians we mentioned earlier from Northwestern University. Are there further questions on this, Tamara?
Just a question about wanting to see how the video might look in the course.
Okay, so let me find a video. Here's one. I won't actually play it because just for time reasons, but I'll show you how. Okay, so there's a little introduction here to what the video is about. And then there's the video itself. As I was saying, I won't start it just because we don't have that much time. But you can see that all our videos are pretty short. Health science students have, as you know, tons of material to cram into their couple of years experience. So they're looking for quick coverage of things. So our videos are short. They are ADA compliant. So that means that we have transcripts here on the side. The transcript runs along with the video so students can read along with it. We also have closed captioning. And here you can see that these students have the option to use either the English or the Spanish transcript. That's a new feature for us as well. The audio is in English only, but they could read the Spanish if they want to. And as we were mentioning before, these videos and the other material can be sort of plopped into your work in different ways. Like if you have a LibGuide for students who are studying health science, you could add the video to there, the other material as well. Or professors and librarians who are instructors can add the material to any of the classes in the LMS. So you can present it to your students in different ways.
Thanks, Etta. The question here about what we mentioned around building connections to clinical practice. Does the product provide examples of how practitioners engage with information in different healthcare settings, such as emergency rooms, dental hygiene, and so forth? I can take that question. So yes, absolutely. So one of the, and it sort of segues nicely from Etta's example about video, because one of the things we really like to use video for is sort of that storytelling, that connection making to clinical practice examples. So often we'll sort of start out by presenting some of the basics on a topic through text and graphics, and then use a short video to show an example connecting to clinical practice. Like for example, if we're in a tutorial on locating drug information, we might have an example related to, a pharmacist or a nurse looking for information about drug side effects in different settings, ranging from clinical to somebody who's participating in research, and so forth. And so we know that our product is used by many different kinds of health science students, and that even within, for example, a nursing program, people might be going into specialties ranging from women's health to critical care to, something more research-based. So one of the things that we really prioritized when creating the product was having examples that really related to all different kinds of health work. And, especially for students who are starting out, some of those examples might even help them think about, interesting ways to use these skills as they're determining their own paths. Let's see, thank you for that question. I'm just gonna see. And sort of along those lines, we have a question about wanting to know a little bit more about the development. And I know we've mentioned that we worked with subject matter experts. So we have both an in-house team of curriculum developers, including Devin and myself. and others who are all librarians by training. And so we worked on really setting this up as a standards-based product, and that you know, we consulted the ACRL standards as well as the ACRL specific nursing standards, and then worked again with health science librarians to really get a finger on the pulse of, you know, what are students on the ground actually encountering in terms of their research needs around some of these topics, and also just kind of verifying the relevance of different types of examples and so forth. And you know, we continue to consult with them as we update the product when we put new tutorials in, as we do every year. Actually, that leads me to the next question, which is about upgrades. I can talk a little bit about this, and then Etta, maybe if you want to add in anything that I'm forgetting.
Sure.
So we do a main content update about once a year. We survey customers first to see if there's any specific topics that the product is, you know, missing that you would really like us to address for your students. And then we develop a couple of new pieces of content each year, usually in the summer when, you know, use of the course might be a little bit lighter. And then occasionally, if something comes up at a different point, like that's not the summer, like for example, the PubMed interface just got updated, and so we weren't originally planning to update that tutorial, but because we wanted to make sure the screenshots were still accurate with what students would be experiencing, we just refreshed it a bit with like new screen capture showing the current interface so that students could really relate it to what they would actually be using. But other updates are, you know, all new, just covering new topics, just to keep the product fresh and add in new things as they become relevant and as we hear from customers about their needs.
Well, can I just add to that, Tamar?
Yeah, please go ahead.
People often ask, so I'm just bringing it up. When we do something new, if you've already made edits to something that is an existing tutorial or quiz or what have you, those are not gone. You can opt out of taking the new material for now if you just want to stick with what you have, and it's always sitting there in the wings for you. If you want that new item later on, it's part of your subscription and you can have it at any time.
Thanks, Etta. And, you know, feel free to continue asking questions. Right now, I think I just see one more, which is wondering if we can show an example of of integration.
I could show the LibGuide. Will I do that?
Great.
I think I'm still showing my screen. Are you seeing the LibGuide now, Tamar?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. So this is one that we've made, and it's something that you can copy. It is meant to be faculty facing or faculty oriented. So it describes for faculty why information literacy is important in health science, and as well how they can use our material in the classroom. So we'll go through all the tabs, but you can see at the top here that we have, you know, a discussion of the importance of this material, how they can add it to their classes. And I'm on the preview page here. This is the one I want to show anyway. So this lists all our items here. And you can see that each one is just plain text. So if you get this, if you copy this LibGuide for yourself, you would add your own links in here because the links are customized for your institution. So you could add your own links and as well, you know, add the material in any order that you choose, because, you know, the order that we've presented is not necessarily what's best for you. You know your students best and your curriculum best. So you can change the order here or leave some of these items out or add your own material that you want to have in here. It's all up to you. I mean, we've mentioned already, you asked about it, person asked about integration, but you can also add this to your LMS, and we have instructions that we would send you depending on what LMS you have. We commonly work with Canvas, Blackboard, D2L, Brightspace, and Moodle. So we can send you instructions on those and work with you until it gets going. But if you have an LMS that's not one of the 4 I mentioned, that's not a problem. We'll still work with you. It's just that we have instructions on our help side for those 4.
Great, thank you, Etta. Well, that's all the questions that I see that have been submitted for now. So I think we can probably start to wrap up, but if you think of another question that you have, or if you'd like to see a fuller demo, or speak with somebody further about the product or IL and the health sciences or in general, we're happy to speak with you further about how we can partner with you. So please feel free to follow up, and we'll be following up with you after the webinar. And you can, we look forward to hearing back from you as well. Devin or Etta, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we finished up for today?
Just to thank everybody for attending, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right, wonderful. Well, thanks again. It was great being able to speak with you today, and we look forward to being in touch again soon. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.